and welcome to the India Development Debate. I'm Tamanna Inamdar, and of course, we're going to be focusing on top of the show on the big news story of the day. Now, we know tensions have been simmering on the LAC, that's the line of actual control between India and China, for quite a few weeks now. We know this is not the first time this has happened, and these skirmishes have taken place in the past as well. But no one perhaps was prepared for the news that came out this afternoon. It's being reported that for the first time in 45 years, an escalation has turned violent, leading to casualties. Reportedly on both sides. On the Indian side, we've lost a colonel and 2 soldiers. This situation arose during a de-escalation process which has been going on for some time now. Now, it is obviously a situation which is alarming. It has raised concerns all around because these are 2 major powers that have been at this LAC in an eyeball-to-eyeball confrontation for several weeks. But what does it really mean, and where do we go on from here? That is today the key question that we need to look at. And speaking to us today on this, I have 2 excellent experts. I'm speaking with Phunchok Sopdan, a strategic affairs expert, and Sushant Sareen as well, a strategic affairs expert. Welcome to both of you, and thank you so much for talking to us today on what is a very nervous day. Where people are wondering what happens next, and where it is imperative that we look at the facts that are available at this time without going into hyperbole. So let me start with you, Mr. Sopdan, and your view on what you think really has happened, because we haven't heard of a situation of Indian soldiers dying in a confrontation with the Chinese. It has not happened for 45 years as per all the reports.
That's right. That's quite unusual now. It's a turning point in border management. But my understanding is that after the 6th June meeting at the senior level military commander meeting, the matter was left to the lower level commanders at the level of colonel and brigade on the both sides to de-escalate wherever it is possible. Especially in the Galwan side at the finger point, PP 14 and PP 16, 17 and the 18th, I suppose. There are 3 or 4 points where there's a face-to-face situation. And I believe the de-escalation had begun quite some time back. But yesterday, when the de-escalation was taking place, then the Chinese were to pull back some 5 kilometers behind the position that they had taken on the 6th of June. Somewhere they turned back and started quarreling with the Indian troops or having some kind of a physical sort of hand-to-hand, some fisticuff between the 2 troops, and which led to the heightening of the situation at one particular point, not at all points. I think more precisely at PP 14, where this incident has taken place. It hasn't taken place at other places. So I clearly see that it's a micro level problem at the de-escalation or disengagement process at the troops level, at the very local commander level of a colonel or a major who are dealing with the situation. The higher level were not involved, I suppose, because this is how the instruction must have gone to the lower level. So to me, it looks like a very small local level incident and gone out of control. I believe there are no shots been fired by both sides. It is that the Chinese side resorted to hitting with roads and iron, weapons and things like that, stone pelting. Which lasted quite a lot, I think, couple of hours till morning perhaps. And although we don't have any official statement coming from the Chinese side, but the Indian military has said there are 3 casualties on this side and 5 casualties on the Chinese side. So, so far only this is the position. We don't know how this will lead to. It can go either way. But I believe I'm quite optimistic that this is an incident
That I appreciate that.
expected
We're over
to
here at ET now. We're sticking to the facts as are being put out from official sources. There is really no room and no point of any kind of speculation in this situation. Sushant, it's important to get some perspective here, though, to understand why we would see an escalation. Is it possible, as of course Mr. Sobdan has said, that this would have been a very local level sort of skirmish which escalated and went out of control?
So, Tamanna, since you say that we should not be speculating, let me admit that none of us know what has happened. And whatever statement has been put out by the government hides much more than what it reveals. What we know is 3 soldiers are dead, and there is a fear being expressed, if some of the speculative reports are to be believed, which are doing the rounds, that the number could go up to double figures. Now, I find it strange that my friend Stobdan is saying that no shots are fired. Yes, no shots are fired. Uh, but I don't see how that's big comfort for us. If if you have casualties, God forbid they run into double figures, whether shots were fired or not fired, I think the whole issue of peace and tranquility is broken down. I don't see how you can say that, look, this was just an isolated incident and some bad things happened. Then either the training of the Chinese soldiers is so terrible that maybe it's about time that we do some strong arm and send them packing, or they were under deliberate instructions to indulge in this kind of provocation. I can't imagine soldiers doing this. Having said that, doing this without instruction. Having said that, I think we must also admit the fact that all those drills and other SOPs that had been built up over the years on how to handle these kind of standoffs have come unstuck. And this there was an accident waiting to happen, and that accident seems to have happened. Now, to say that shots were not fired, but the Chinese came with clubs and nail-studded, I don't know, staffs or whatever, is not good enough. It might be according to the letter of the SOP, but it's not by the spirit of the SOP. So tomorrow, I can ask my soldiers to go with knives or swords and say that, okay, fine, I chopped off a few heads, but no shots were fired. So I'm sorry, I find this unacceptable. I don't think we should take this lying down. But again, I think, let me take a cue from what Stobdan is saying. I sense that the effort right now is to play it down. The effort is not to, make a big issue out of it, which is why you have the Prime Minister, despite the fact that an incident for the first time in 45 years has happened along the LAC, tensions are running, very high, prefers to talk to chief ministers about the Chinese virus rather than about what's happening on the border. You have the other ministers behaving very nonchalantly as though nothing really serious has happened. You have strategic communications coming from the government which suck, and for the government to say that we are still taking, a measure of the situation before we come out with some statement at a time when the world over, all eyes are focused on this statement, and you have the government of India which is just keeping quiet. Now, I don't know how, what kind of strategic communication strategy this is, but for me, this leaves a lot to be desired. And then, that Schadenfreude that we are displaying, that, okay, fine, a few of our soldiers have died, but so have a few of the Chinese. Is that the way we are going to balance this out and say, okay, fine, we've even the scores, and that's the end of it?
Absolutely, Sushant. No, you have your point is well taken. Your point is well taken, and the idea here is to have a tempered, intelligent sort of discussion on this, and a sort of a sober one instead of saber rattling unnecessarily. But we have to look at what has happened and what the facts really on ground are. Mr. Stobdan, that's why the more important question now is what happens from here. what happens from here? Do you see a situation, considering that there are efforts now to tone down flared tempers, etc. Do you see us going back to a de-escalation kind of situation?
Yes, I think the de-escalation process will not stop by this incident. The disengagement will continue. And in addition, I think disengagement will be handled by much more senior level people, overseen by other people who are more responsible than junior level commanders. We don't know what grudges they hold each other, because this kind of incident has been happening from the 5th of May onwards. There were injuries caused on both sides for last 1 month itself. So tit for tat kind of a thing must be happening somewhere. We don't know what's cooking up in the minds of troops who are there. I mean, it's beyond a point, it's not about what your senior tells you. Beyond a point, you take your own call. You are the one who are facing the problem at the border. An individual soldier has his own decision how to react to a certain provocation by the other side. So that's why I'm saying it's a very micro level issue which has to be handled properly. My own sense is that the de-escalation was not handled properly. I won't say mismanagement. It could be tactical, it could be intention not to handle properly, but yes, this has led to this kind of thing. If you have anticipated that there could be a scope for this kind of a problem, then things would have been taken much more seriously. The point, again, it's not just about de-escalations. Chinese are not budging from their position at Finger 4 in the other side at Pangong Lake. They're sitting there. They're not budging at all. They're putting up fences and walls at the position where there's holding. On the other hand, we are also not stopping our road constructions. So the sticky points are somewhere else. De-escalation, when there's a build-up at this level, small kind of error and incident could happen. One can interpret in many ways. We can't lying low. Emotions can be, can be created on the other side. That's not the solution. But I believe if the figures are correct, 3 on this side and 5 on the other side, Sushant is saying it could get to a double-digit figure. Possible? Why not? It's possible. But then there is a sense of what I see now as a balance of tragedies. There is an equalizing factor that, okay, our troops have been killed, but your troops also have been killed, or they would say something else, and both are posturing right now. We don't know how this will unfold. But at the moment, I see deliberate or not deliberate, there's some effort to say that, look, okay, you got problem, I also got problem. Therefore, let's not stop the de-escalation process. Let's continue. In addition, I think the diplomatic and political channels, I think it's high time to open, although there is
one thing. Yes, I was coming to the diplomatic channel, Mr. Stobdan. I just want to come yes, Mr. Stobdan, if you can hear me, I just want to come on the diplomatic channel on it. Now, at the helm of affairs on both sides are 2 heads of states who have had a pretty decent working relationship between Prime Minister Modi and Xi Jinping. Will that not come into play at this point?
I don't think it will come if it requires. At this stage, it's not necessary. We just use the military channels. Even foreign minister level, I'm sure they are talking to each other. On the 22nd of this month, we are supposed to meet, I think, the 3 foreign ministers of Russia, India, and China. If the idea is to scuttle that meeting, then it's a different ball game. Maybe the Chinese intention is not to meet, which the Russians want. Maybe we don't want to meet. Maybe the Americans don't want us to see together. We don't know what is happening in this world. So we can only guess, as Sushant says, that nobody knows exactly what's happening. So since you have called us, we are only guessing, speculating certain things. Nobody has got exact information.
Yeah. No, we don't want to speculate. We don't want to speculate. What we want to get out of both of you, and why we have called you, is to get perspective on a subject matter which everyone has suddenly become an instant expert about. But we know that there are people like both of you who have tracked this carefully for years, not just from this afternoon, which is why we're eager to hear what you have to say. Sushant, the next steps, do you think that this needs to now be resolved diplomatically?
But Tamanna, here's the problem. We were engaging with the Chinese at the diplomatic level if reports which have appeared in the press are to be believed. And those reports, I can assure you that those reports have come from sources at the very highest levels in the government. So we have been told that the National Security Advisor, Mr. Doval, was engaged with his counterpart, Yang Jiechi, who's the state councillor, Politburo member in China. We know it for a fact that at the diplomatic level also, there were conversations taking place. We know that at the military level and at the senior most military levels, at least at the local level, the Indian Corps commander, who's an extremely competent officer, and his Chinese counterpart, they were engaging into conversations. So there was no dearth of dialogue which was happening. And yet, if something like this happens, then clearly something is badly broken. And we just can't turn a blind eye to what is actually happening on the ground. And when I say what is actually happening on the ground, then you have to add a lot of the other stuff which has been appearing, which means that the Chinese have been bringing their troops forward, not just in the Ladakh sector, but all along the LAC, right from the eastern sector to the middle sector to the western sector. We know that the kind of statements which have been coming out of the Chinese, statements you could even ignore if you wanted to, but nevertheless they are indicative of some kind of thinking within the Chinese. And I'm not just talking about Global Times, which is just keeps barking all the time. I'm talking about somewhat more serious people who have been writing stuff on India-China relationship. And none of it is something which would enthuse anybody who wants to see relations between the two countries improve. On the other side, you see that from the government side, constantly there's been an effort to play it down. And I suspect that maybe the Chinese are trying to find out how much we are willing to stand. Keep in mind the fact that this year's budget has reduced the defense budget to the lowest after 1962. Probably it's lower than what it used to be as a percentage of GDP in 1962. Literally, we have been starving our armed forces of the kind of equipment, of the kind of preparedness they need. And maybe the Chinese are trying to see how much they can finger us. The other thing is that we have this constant thing that this is not 1962. Sure, this is not 1962. The Indian army is not the ill-equipped Indian army of 1962, but then neither is the Chinese army the primitive army that the Chinese had in 1962. So I think we need to be realistic and to constantly say that the Chinese don't want war. What if the Chinese actually want to provoke a border conflict? Have we factored that in? Are we taking that into account? Have we gamed that possibility? How are we going to handle the situation? And then when we are talking about the larger strategy,
I'm sure this is happening. I hope it's happening. Yeah, I hope. I'm sure this is being factored in, Sushant, and I hope it is happening. We'll have to wait and watch. We'll have to wait and watch. It's a tense day. It's a tense day. It's in the middle of a global COVID pandemic, when this morning everyone's concern was that Beijing was seeing a second wave and a lockdown. Now we have other problems concerning Beijing. I hope better sense prevails. And the Chinese do realize that they need to focus on what really matters and de-escalate and stop irking India in this manner. I want to thank Mr. Stobdan and Sushant for joining us on the first big story this evening.